Hi, I'm Reya Mehrotra, and today we are at the Roli Books CMYK store in Delhi in conversation with Ms. Priya and Kapil Kapoor of Roli Books, talking about the state of Indian publishing industry. So, Roli has completed more than 4 decades in publishing. How do you describe the journey as?
We're going to be 45 next year, of which Kapil and I have been a part of it for almost 2 decades. But in some way or the other, we've always been associated with the company because it's been a family business and something that my father started, and our mother was also quite closely associated with it. The journey so far is that today Roli is one of the most well-known, recognized independent Indian publishing houses. We do a limited number of fiction books, a lot of illustrated books, and of course a really great dynamic list of non-fiction. We're constantly looking to innovate. We also have a retail branch known as CMYK. In recently, we've also explored different platforms on how to get our books across to a larger audience, and we've tasted a lot of success in selling audiovisual rights for our books. And the future is open, and we're quite excited to continue to find new ways to get our books and stories and authors across to readers.
So, if you would like to put in words, how has the publishing scene in India changed from when you started to now? How would you describe it as?
Well, I think there's been a lot of change the biggest change I would see is that for the types of books that we do, which are trade nonfiction books, that the readership has increased over the years. And if we talk about, one of our specialities, which is these illustrated books that we've been doing for over 4 decades, those were the first set of books that came out were the illustrated books. That there has definitely been a bigger appetite for illustrated books within India.
But keeping in mind today's tough environment when it comes to publishing, there's a presence of MNC publications like Penguin and Harper, and there's this coexistence of the Indian publishing houses. So does it make it any difficult for the Indian publishing houses to survive?
No, I would say that one of the things is that the more people that are there, in fact, some of these larger international publishing houses, that has only increased the entire ecosystem. One company cannot contribute in increasing readership. This has to be, as an industry, the industry grows, then everybody grows. So I think there's been a huge benefit in the multinational companies coming in and giving a platform to Indian authors to write and just growing the industry as a whole. Yes, of course, on a day-to-day basis, there are challenges. There you are up against very, very large sort of global behemoths in a way, and that's fine, but that's in every industry. And you find a way to come across those, and there are advantages of being a smaller domestic family-run businesses, like there are in any industry. But on the whole, I think the fact that almost every large publishing house in the world is in India, I think has benefited the industry quite a lot.
So, but talking about authors, Roli has a string of well-known names that you've published, but we see a lot of big authors, celebrity authors, so to say, going to bigger publication houses like Penguin or Harper, and they get paid hefty amounts of sum also. So, do you think that is a problem because the smaller publications cannot afford it at times, and it becomes difficult to get the big names published?
My view on that is that the market is big enough. Yes, you might have a small set of very well-known authors who are, perhaps getting paid a lot, and their royalties are and advances are very high, and maybe, but that's not the entire pool. Yeah. Like Priya was saying, we innovate a lot, so there is a lot of room for being kind of original, coming up with newer ideas. And luckily in India at the moment, there's a lot of talent that you can publish.
Just to add to that, I would say that publishing books is not just about publishing big names.
Yes.
One of our responsibilities is to also give platform to new talent and to identify them and to publish them, and that's something that we strive to do every year. And secondly, just to add to what Kapil said about innovation, something that we've always prided ourselves on, and it's very much part of the Roli DNA, is that we come up with ideas and we commission, so we go to whoever we feel is going to be the best person to write that book, and we take the idea to them. Now, however big of an author you are, if that idea excites you and the way that we are proposing to publish the book excites you, 9 out of 10 times they will agree. And there are multiple examples I can give to you, whether it's a Shashi Tharoor who published with us. It was an idea, it was a book commissioned by us. We basically reissued Kushwant Singh's iconic Train to Pakistan in its 50th year of publication. And at that time, it was our idea to make it into an illustrated version with some of the most well-known, hard-hitting photographs that were shot at that time by people like Margaret Bork-White. Now, it was that complete genius innovation that came out of Roli Books that even though there was a edition of Train to Pakistan in print, he was very excited about it. And he said, no, please do it and please reissue this.
So Mr. Pramod Kapoor had established Roli and helped it grow not only as a publisher but as an author as well. And now you're carrying the legacy forward as second generation publishers. And what I noticed was you tweeted a few days ago that one day I will write about the challenges about independent publishing houses. The entire chapter will be dedicated to literary heirs. So, what do you mean by that? And do you think
this is another place that I would, when I write my book, then you read it. Yeah.
So, do you think the readership in India is changing? Because we see a lot of celebrity authors publishing their autobiographies, memoirs, but last year we saw a lot of new names emerging and they were awarded as well. Like Daripal Lindem's book was shortlisted for JCB. So, do you think the readership is evolving in that way?
100%. And this goes back to what Kapil said about, the more publishers, the more platforms, the more opportunities to publish different kinds of books, voices, authors. I think it's a two-way situation. Of course, we can't always wait for the audience or the market to be optimum and best and then publish these books. At the same time, I'm sure the audience is also saying, give us these books so that we can also expand. We want to read Indian writers, Indian stories, and so on. So I think it's a good time. I mean, just by the example that you've given, and if you look at any number of, especially I would say fiction in the last few years, there's been a proliferation only because there has to be an audience. That's why there is a confidence in going ahead and publishing.
So you've published a lot on Indian culture and history. Do you think that culturally and historically relevant books are even more important now, given the climate we are living in, the propaganda and the polarization that's happening?
I think, that has always been the case, to be honest. You can't change history, you can't change the facts. Our job is not really to look at the short-term view or the short-term environment. Some of the books that we have published will stand the test of time, and it doesn't matter what the current political environment may be. Right. So that's not something that influences the types of books that we do or the kind of take that we have on a particular subject. What is very important is that, we are lucky that in a country like India, there is such a rich history and such a rich culture and tradition that you can keep publishing about it for decades, and you can keep unearthing gems that that people don't know much about.
So in the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of digital, footprint come into the publishing industry. People have launched audiobooks and QR codes. So Roli has launched Roli Pulse. So how are you planning to tap deeper into that segment?
Roli Pulse was born at a time when, because of the pandemic and because of the external factors in supply chains and not being able to get our books out into the hands of readers, that there was just wanted to keep putting out, great, for the want of a better word, content out to people, where we were talking about the types of books that we have recently published, our authors' voices, just to keep people engaged. But going forward, we will use it as a digital platform to talk about the publishing that we are doing. So it can be used as an ancillary tool to the publishing list. It can be used as a marketing platform for that. It can be used as just another platform where you reach a wider audience.
So you've recently published, not long ago, the memoir of Bishan Singh Bedi. So any other memoirs or autobiographies in the works?
Yeah, many. Actually, Bishan Singh Bedi's book was not a memoir. It was a tribute to him by almost 35 people, including his family members and ex-teammates and, international cricketing greats from other countries as well, and journalists and so on. He
Yeah.
was turning 75
Mhm.
last year.
Yes.
And as you may know, that he'd come out of a very severe illness, so it was like a celebratory tribute to him. But no, we have quite a few memoirs. We've got Sushma Swaraj's biography, written by quite an eminent journalist called Radhika Ramashesan. And we have a biography of Ramvilas Paswan by Shobita Nair, another journalist. These are the two that comes to mind because these are the ones that we'll be publishing within the year.
So yesterday I was talking to Ms. Urvashi Batalia, and she was talking about how though there are no taxes on books, but the publishers have to pay 18% GST, and that narrows the profit margin. The Indian publishing houses already have a very small profit margin, and that further presses on their profit. So what do you have to say about that? Do
No,
you think
that's absolutely true.
that's true?
Yeah,
Right?
that's absolutely true. And certain regulations that have come into place in the last sort of 4 or 5 years have not helped the situation in the industry, because it is one of those strange situations where your inputs, all your inputs are heavily taxable, whether, the two biggest costs of a publishing house is printing and royalties.
Right.
On both there is a GST involvement, but unlike other industries where there is an output and an input and you can set those two things off, here we have no output to set it off. So it is clearly just goes straight to the bottom line and hits the profitability, and that's not ideal in an industry where margins are already quite thin. So that I hope the industry comes together and we have a voice with the government, and that can change. There are many headwinds. This is just one of them. I mean, if you are importing books into the country, there is an import duty which wasn't there earlier. So there have been things in the last sort of 4 or 5 years which have made it more difficult, and I hope that changes, because despite all of that, you're pushing against all of that and trying to make things happen.
Would you suggest any policy changes to make it more publisher friendly in India?
I think in general, just the whole reading and book publishing should be elevated in the eyes of policymakers, so that any policy that they make is conducive towards it. I wouldn't point out one thing, but I think at the moment we're just not seen as an important enough industry, which is sad. Whether it is book selling, and bookstores are hurting, publishers, authors, anybody who is part of this ecosystem. Unfortunately, I think at the moment it's not seen as a big enough industry, for you to have, good policies around it.
Absolutely. And I think the value that is put to literature and so on needs to be re-looked at, because there are so many, it doesn't always come down to taxation, although that's a very big part of the issue today, but also it's using literature, authors, and publishing as a soft power. I mean, the fact that we publish in English and in so many multiple languages.
Yeah.
So that also means that the room for talent is just so enormous in this country. And the fact that there's such little support, when you think about it, from the powers that be, who have the means to, take it from already what people are doing, but elevating it to another level. I think there's hazard opportunities that they should be, and there are very good examples of other countries who are already doing it.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of looking and even adopting maybe 2-3 of them to start off with. But it all stems from what Kapil was saying, to bring importance and value back to the industry and what the publishing industry means for this country and what it can do as well.
But also I would add that that's, as far as I know, it's always been the case. It's not something that has recently happened, This is ever since that we have been working in publishing. It was always you're doing things despite the regulations and the government, and it's kind of a private initiative, We've never been a situation that we've gotten some kind of support from whoever has been in government
You have to
at that
create
time.
your own opportunities, basically. Yeah.
Right. And then there's the whole Make in India push. So do you think that this is one sector that the government should include in that?
Definitely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
in that, like I said, there are so many avenues that they can include the publishing industry in different programs that they have running, and definitely Make in India is one of them. But there are many such things. I think right now it's just not a priority sector, and that's the first step that we need to take.
We definitely want to find more opportunities to get our stories and our books and our authors across to people. Now, this is a, you know, evolution that's happening daily. This whole digital world and this whole world of basically having entertainment and content and streaming and so on. There's so much happening.
Yeah.
And we are at a very good cross point of basically being a part of that.
Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely having a word with
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.